Late September 2018, Scarborough moved quietly near Sheppard Avenue East while a blue Infiniti sat idling behind the plaza, engine humming low under dim parking lot lights. Two teenagers stepped out of that ride like they'd done this routine before, shoulders loose, energy calm, nothing in their body language screaming danger yet. Then one sharp gunshot cracked through the air, sending echoes bouncing off brick walls while one body folded fast, collapsing hard onto cold pavement. People nearby froze first, then scattered once reality settled in, while whispers started spreading that the shooter actually knew the victim personally. That part hit different since folks kept asking how a partner suddenly becomes a target mid-mission, which takes us back before that night back to Sparrowways, where everything started. Sparrowways in Scarborough never looked like the rest of Toronto brochures. The townhouse blocks carried chipped paint, cracked stair rails, and hallways filled with echoes of kids running unsupervised most afternoons. Families packed tight into narrow units where rent stayed low, while crime reports around Field Sparrowway Court kept stacking across years, giving the complex a reputation locals understood without long explanations. Inside that environment grew Jatori Williams, raised alongside four siblings in a space where survival lessons came quicker than classroom lectures ever could. Neighbors later told reporters that Sparrowways felt like its own ecosystem, where young boys picked up street awareness early while authority stayed distant most days. That pressure increased after Jatori turned 11, when immigration officials deported his mother back to Guyana, leaving the household under the care of an older sister, barely grown herself. Court records later described that transition as a turning point, since structure faded fast while responsibilities fell heavy on teenagers still learning how to navigate their own lives. Food insecurity crept into daily routines, which surfaced years later during trials when judges referenced reports that he stole from gym lockers just to eat something. Those small acts did not stay isolated. Survival habits slowly shifted into petty theft patterns that spread beyond school buildings into nearby neighborhoods. Teachers occasionally tried interventions, though those efforts struggled against realities waiting outside classroom doors, where peers already living street life shaped identity more strongly than academic guidance ever managed. Sparrowways had its own code, so younger kids watched older ones move weight, hustle little money, or handle conflicts without authorities stepping in too often. That atmosphere built a mindset centered on self-preservation, which psychologists later hinted at during court discussions around his emotional development. By mid-teens, shoplifting rumors turned into break-in stories, which neighbors whispered about quietly without formal complaints reaching police often. Legal documents would later mention how early exposure to instability can harden decision-making, pointing out that survival-driven choices sometimes evolve into colder calculations once consequences stop feeling immediate. Judges reviewing his background noted the absence of consistent adult supervision during formative years, tying that gap to patterns visible in later crimes. None of those notes excused what came afterward, yet they painted context around a boy raised where stability rarely showed up daily. That context matters, since understanding Sparrowways helps explain how a teenager eventually crossed paths with someone who would reshape his trajectory entirely. By his later teens, Jatori moved deeper into Scarborough circles, where reputation traveled fast through apartment corridors. That was where he linked up with Jago Anderson, a louder presence already known among local crews. Anderson carried himself older than his 19 years, speaking confidently, moving with a swagger that younger guys respected even when older heads kept their distance. Street chatter around Bellamy Road and Sheppard East often mentioned his name tied to robberies or small hustles, which made him stand out compared to quieter kids from Sparrowways. Once those two connected, similarities clicked quickly, since both shared a hunger for money plus recognition that regular jobs did not promise. Their partnership grew through late-night link-ups, where conversations about quick cash slowly turned into planning small licks targeting businesses unlikely to fight back hard. Early hits focused on spas scattered across Scarborough and North York, locations chosen carefully since employees there usually work late with minimal security presence. Surveillance clips later shown in court captured moments where masked figures entered massage parlors, flashing weapons briefly before grabbing phones, wallets, or cash drawers. Those early moves built confidence, since each successful robbery fed a cycle where risk started feeling manageable. Online forums like Torontology would later romanticize that period, with anonymous users calling them a drilling duo, throwing slang around without knowing how real those crimes actually were. Comments exaggerated body counts, though investigators clarified later that verified cases centered mostly around robberies rather than shootings during that early phase. Still, reputation spread quietly across neighborhoods like Malvern, Scarborough Village, plus pockets near Jane and Finch, where stories traveled faster than official reports. That buzz pulled in another name, Josiah Blair Taylor, who began appearing alongside them in investigations tied to later incidents. As their circle expanded, crime shifted from opportunistic theft into armed intimidation, where weapons started playing central roles during robberies. Court summaries later described how victims faced gunpoint threats during spa holdups, marking a clear evolution from earlier non-violent hustles. Patterns emerged where they selected targets with limited resistance, often striking late evenings when the surrounding streets stayed quieter. Within certain circles, whispers suggested they stacked robberies rapidly. Reports later tied them to at least 20 such incidents across the greater Toronto area, building reputations that carried weight even without mainstream headlines noticing. What kept them tight during that stretch was shared risk, since committing crimes together built bonds stronger than casual friendships ever could. Each successful escape reinforced trust, making loyalty feel real even when outside observers might question it later. By late summer 2018, that partnership looked solid from the outside. Two young men moving through Toronto's margins with synchronized ambition. Nobody around them expected that bond would fracture violently within weeks, which made what happened next feel colder once the truth finally surfaced. By summer 2018, the movement picked up pace across the greater Toronto area, with reports placing Jatori Williams and Jago Anderson drifting between Scarborough, Brampton, and North York, chasing quick scores. Their routes followed suburban strips where smaller businesses stayed open late, creating windows where armed intimidation could unfold before patrol cars ever circled back. One of the most serious incidents occurred in Brampton on September 3, 2018, when Maria Gonzalez faced a home invasion that was later tied directly to their timeline. Court records described 3 armed men forcing entry, binding her hands and feet while tearing through rooms searching for valuables. During that invasion, Gonzalez lost several belongings, though one item carried more weight than anyone realized that night: her personal iPhone taken during the robbery. Investigators would later confirm that the device resurfaced in evidence tied to Williams, though back then it looked like another frightening burglary among many reported across Peel region. The violence inside that house marked a shift, since home invasions carried heavier consequences than earlier spa robberies that rarely involved extended confinement of victims. Still, the pattern did not slow. Days later, surveillance cameras captured movements inside Scarborough businesses tied to the same group. Spa robberies during that stretch appeared methodical, with footage showing masked figures entering massage parlors along Sheppard Avenue East, briefly flashing weapons before collecting phones, purses, and whatever cash stayed accessible. Those clips, later presented in court, revealed calm body language, suggesting a rhythm already familiar to them rather than impulsive decisions made in panic. Each successful escape built confidence, which fed stories traveling through neighborhood conversations and online forums where users exaggerated numbers without real documentation. Anonymous posters claimed they stacked bodies, though verified cases at that point still centered mostly around robberies, escalating in seriousness. Street bravado grew alongside those rumors, shaping an aura where reputation outpaced reality, especially within younger circles watching movements from a distance. That myth building mattered, since perception alone can amplify influence long before headlines catch up with facts. Meanwhile, police awareness stayed scattered across jurisdictions, with incidents logged separately by Toronto police and Peel regional investigators who had not yet linked cases tightly. That gap allowed the duo to operate with a rhythm that looked almost careless from the outside, moving quickly across neighborhoods without sensing how close evidence already hovered beneath the surface. Everything shifted mid-September 2018, when violence crossed a line that Robberies had not yet fully stepped over, placing the duo near a homicide that changed how investigators eventually viewed their trajectory. On September 14th, emergency crews rushed toward Bellamy Towers in Scarborough after reports of gunfire outside the apartment complex near Cedarbrae Boulevard. When officers arrived, they found 16-year-old Elijah Aziavor collapsed near the building entrance, suffering gunshot wounds that paramedics could not reverse despite rapid response. News coverage later confirmed he died shortly afterward, marking one of Toronto's late summer homicides that year. Witnesses reported seeing two males fleeing in a dark-colored SUV, which investigators later linked to a distinctive blue Infiniti seen around Scarborough during multiple incidents. At the time, that detail did not spark immediate connections beyond neighborhood chatter, but it would prove critical once the full pattern emerged. The shooting of Elijah Aziavor represented a stark escalation, moving the pair from property crimes into lethal violence that drew serious attention from homicide units. Toronto police began piecing together fragments from earlier robberies, noting similarities in vehicle descriptions and suspect profiles that pointed toward the same group operating in the East End. As September 18th approached, the partnership between Williams and Anderson remained outwardly intact. They had planned another routine spa robbery that evening on Sheppard Avenue East, targeting a location with the same low-resistance profile they had exploited successfully before. The blue Infiniti, already tied to prior sightings, waited in the parking lot behind the plaza as the two young men stepped out, guns presumably ready, following the script that had worked dozens of times. But something shifted in those final moments before they entered the target. What started as a standard holdup ended in gunfire, with Anderson collapsing on the pavement while Williams fled the scene. The echoes of that single shot would reverberate far beyond the immediate plaza, unraveling the carefully built criminal operation and exposing layers of evidence that investigators had been quietly gathering. The immediate aftermath of the shooting saw chaos ripple through the local community. Bystanders who heard the crack of the gunshot described the sudden panic, with people ducking for cover and calling emergency services. Toronto police responded quickly to the scene, securing the area and beginning the process of canvassing for witnesses and reviewing nearby surveillance. The victim, Jago Anderson, 19 years old, was pronounced dead at the scene, his body left on the cold pavement as officers worked to preserve evidence. The blue Infiniti, which had idled so casually moments earlier, was later found burned in a nearby location. a common tactic used to destroy forensic traces like DNA or fingerprints. Back in Sparrowways, where Williams had grown up, the news of the shooting spread through familiar corridors and whispered conversations. Neighbors who remembered him as the quiet kid from the townhouses now grappled with reports linking him to the violence. The contrast between his early life of instability and the escalating crimes painted a complex picture that courts would later examine in detail. Court records from subsequent proceedings highlighted how the deportation of his mother at age 11 had left a void filled by street influences, with food insecurity pushing early thefts that escalated over time. Psychologists testifying in related hearings noted the impact of absent parental structure on adolescent decision-making, though they emphasized that such backgrounds do not determine outcomes but provide context for understanding patterns. As investigators connected the dots, the stolen iPhone from the September 3rd Brampton home invasion became a pivotal link. Maria Gonzalez's device, taken during the armed entry and binding of victims, contained data that forensic analysis later tied directly to Williams. This evidence, combined with vehicle descriptions, matched the blue Infiniti across multiple robberies and the Azziavor shooting, began building a stronger case against the young Scarborough resident. Peel Regional Police and Toronto Police Service started sharing intelligence more effectively, bridging the jurisdictional gaps that had previously allowed the crimes to continue unchecked. The spa robberies themselves, numbering around 20 according to later court summaries, follow a consistent modus operandi: masked entrance with flash firearms to intimidate staff, collect cash and valuables quickly, and exit without prolonged confrontation. Surveillance footage from various locations showed the same calm efficiency, reinforcing the idea of practiced teamwork between Williams and Anderson. Victims in these incidents often described the perpetrators as young, composed, and focused solely on quick gains, with threats delivered in a manner that suggested prior experience rather than desperation. These crimes not only provided financial rewards, but also fueled the street reputation that drew associates like Josiah Blair Taylor into their orbit for later incidents. Throughout the summer and early fall of 2018, the duo's activities created a ripple effect in affected communities. Business owners in Scarborough and North York heightened security at late-night establishments, while residents in high-crime pockets like Malvern and Jane Finch exchanged warnings through informal networks. Online forums amplified the mystique, turning anonymous posts into legends that sometimes outpaced verified facts. Yet beneath the bravado lay a trajectory heading toward inevitable confrontation with law enforcement. The shooting of Elijah Azziavor on September 14th served as a clear warning sign, one that investigators could no longer ignore as they traced the dark SUV and Infiniti sightings. By the time September 18th arrived, the accumulated evidence from robberies, the home invasion, and the recent homicide positioned Williams and Anderson at the center of a growing investigation. Their final joint operation, intended as another routine score at the spa, instead became the moment that ended one life and altered the course of another. The gunshot in the parking lot behind the plaza marked the fracture point where partnership dissolved into betrayal or accident, a question that courts would later debate at length. As Williams fled the scene, leaving his partner on the pavement, the blue Infiniti became both getaway vehicle and eventual evidence trail when it was discovered burned shortly afterward. This sequence of events set the stage for a comprehensive police response that would eventually lead to arrests and charges spanning multiple homicides. The community in Scarborough, already familiar with the challenges of Sparrowways and similar neighborhoods, watched as the story unfolded in local news, prompting discussions about youth crime, systemic factors, and the need for better intervention programs. Court documents from later trials would reference these broader societal issues, noting how economic pressures and lack of support structures contributed to cycles of offending while underscoring personal accountability for the violent acts committed. The transition from petty survival crimes to armed robberies and then lethal violence illustrated a dangerous progression that investigators had seen in other cases, but rarely at such a young age. Williams, still in his late teens during these events, embodied the risks facing vulnerable youth in underserved Toronto areas. His partnership with the more outgoing Anderson had provided the operational synergy for the string of successful robberies. But that same closeness made the September 18th shooting all the more shocking. As details emerged in the days following the incident, police began focusing their efforts on locating Williams, using surveillance from Sparrowways and rideshare records that placed him in the area shortly after the event. Forensic teams worked diligently on the burned vehicle and the plaza scene, recovering shell casings, potential DNA traces, and witness statements that painted a picture of coordinated activity gone wrong. The iPhone evidence from Brampton provided a digital breadcrumb trail linking communications and location data to the timeline of crimes. These technical breakthroughs, combined with traditional policing methods like neighborhood canvassing, slowly closed the net around the suspects. Meanwhile, the death of Elijah Oziavor continued to resonate in his community, with family and friends mourning a 16-year-old whose life was cut short in what appeared to be a random or targeted act tied to the same crew. As the investigation intensified, the full scope of the crimes, from the methodical spa holdups to the home invasion and homicides, became clearer. Reports indicated the group had operated with a level of planning that allowed them to evade immediate detection, but the accumulation of evidence proved decisive. By late September 2018, Williams faced mounting pressure as links between the incidents solidified. The once solid partnership with Anderson had ended in tragedy, leaving behind questions about motive, loyalty, and the thin line between criminal collaboration and deadly conflict. The narrative of Jatori Williams up to this point reflected a young man shaped by early adversity and Sparrowways, propelled into a criminal lifestyle through necessity and opportunity, and ultimately entangled in events that would define his legacy in Toronto's crime history. The robberies had provided short-term gains, but at the cost of escalating risks, culminating in the violence that claimed lives and drew the full attention of the justice system. As the immediate ripple effects of the September 18th shooting spread, the stage was set for the forensic unraveling, additional charges, and courtroom reckonings that would follow. The immediate aftermath of the September 18th shooting thrust the case into high gear for Toronto police. Williams fled the plaza area, but surveillance footage and witness accounts placed him walking through familiar Sparrowways streets shortly afterward before using a rideshare service to leave the vicinity. The burned blue Infiniti, discovered nearby, yielded partial forensic evidence despite the fire damage, while ballistics from the scene matched patterns from earlier incidents. These elements, combined with the iPhone data from the Brampton home invasion, formed the backbone of the initial case against him. On September 24, 2018, authorities arrested Williams in connection with the Anderson homicide and related robberies. He was 19 years old at the time of arrest, facing immediate charges that would expand significantly in the coming years. Investigators continued building the file, linking him to the September 14th murder of Elijah Oziavor through vehicle descriptions, witness identifications, and circumstantial evidence from the Bellamy Towers area. Josiah Blair Taylor, already appearing in peripheral investigations, was also drawn into the web of charges for the Oziavor case and later incidents. As the case progressed through the courts, details emerged about the exact circumstances of Anderson's death. During trial proceedings in 2022, Williams reenacted the key scene in the courtroom, maintaining that the shooting was accidental, a clumsy handoff of the gun in the parking lot as they prepared for the spa robbery. Prosecutors presented a different view, arguing the act was deliberate, supported by forensic evidence, including gunshot residue and the positioning of the body. The jury ultimately convicted Williams of second-degree murder in the death of Jago Anderson, acknowledging the partnership's violent end without accepting the full accidental narrative. The conviction for Anderson's murder was only the beginning. In 2020, additional charges were laid, connecting Williams to the first-degree murder of Elijah Aziavor. Court evidence tied the pair, along with Blair Taylor, to the Bellamy Towers, shooting through coordinated movements and the distinctive vehicle. Witnesses and digital forensics helped establish presence at the scene, leading to convictions on those counts as well. The Aziavor case highlighted the random nature of some of the violence, with the 16-year-old caught in crossfire tied to the crew's activities. Further charges in 2020 expanded the scope to include a 2019 double homicide in the Jane and Finch area. On October 1st, 2019, Delonte Bryant and Eric Rowe were killed in what police described as a targeted shooting involving Williams and associates. Blair Taylor faced separate but related charges for first-degree murder and attempted murder in that incident. These 2019 crimes occurred while Williams was already under scrutiny for the 2018 events, demonstrating a continued pattern of lethal violence even as investigations closed in. Trial proceedings for the various charges unfolded over several years, with significant developments in 2022 and 2023. In the Anderson and Aziavor cases, prosecutors relied heavily on surveillance, phone records, vehicle tracking, and witness testimony to paint a picture of a criminal enterprise that escalated from robberies to homicides. Defense arguments centered on accidental elements in the partner shooting and challenges to identification in the Aziavor case, but the weight of accumulated evidence proved decisive. Williams was found guilty on the core murder counts, receiving life sentences with no parole eligibility for 25 years on the first-degree convictions. By June 2024, additional life sentences were handed down for the North York double killing of Delonte Bryant and Eric Rowe. These sentences ran concurrently with the earlier terms, ensuring Williams would serve multiple life terms effectively. At sentencing, the court considered the full impact on victims' families, the community terror caused by the string of crimes, and the defendant's background as mitigating but not excusing factors. Judges emphasized the need for public protection given the severity and repetition of the offenses. Josiah Blair Taylor, charged alongside Williams in some incidents, faced his own trial outcomes, including convictions for first-degree murder and attempted murder related to the 2019 events. His case underscored the collaborative nature of the later crimes, with multiple individuals involved in the planning and execution. Throughout the legal process, public interest remained high, fueled by media coverage and online discussions on platforms like Torontology. The story of the young Scarborough man who rose from Sparrowways to notoriety through robberies and murders resonated as a cautionary tale about youth crime in Toronto. Community leaders and victim advocates used the case to highlight needs for early intervention, mental health support, and economic opportunities in high-risk neighborhoods. Reports from the trials referenced the same environmental factors noted in early assessments of Williams: food insecurity, lack of supervision, and street influences, while stressing personal responsibility for the choices made. For the families of the victims, the convictions provided a measure of closure but could not erase the losses. Elijah Aziavor's death at 16 left a void in his community, with loved ones remembering a young life full of potential cut short. Jago Anderson's killing, coming from within his own criminal circle, added layers of betrayal to the grief felt by those who knew him. The 2019 victims, Delonte Bryant and Eric Rowe, represented further senseless violence in the Jane Finch corridor, prompting renewed calls for gun control and anti-gang initiatives. As the dust settled on the courtroom verdicts, Jatori Williams, now in his mid-20s, began serving his life sentences in a federal penitentiary. The once promising criminal partnership that had netted dozens of robberies ended in gunfire and forensic dead ends for the perpetrators. As communities heal and move forward, the focus remains on preventing the next generation from following the same path, ensuring that survival instincts lead toward positive outlets rather than the shadows of armed robbery and homicide. The case closed with finality in the courts, but its echoes continue to inform discussions on youth safety and systemic reform in the Greater Toronto Area.